Hello. Uh, welcome everyone to the Fireside Chat with Emine Baris Atayurt. Um, Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday afternoon. I'm your host for this session. My name is Rutu Manchiganti. I am the Executive Director of Master of Engineering Management Programs Consortium. A little bit about MEMPC. We are a consortium of 9 Master of Engineering Management graduate programs at some of the leading US universities who have come together to form a consortium with the goal of promoting and raising awareness about the MEM degree. A fireside chat session is a way for us to showcase our alumni and show the diversity and the versatility and the strength of our degree and the paths that our alumni have taken post-MEM. So let's get started. Hi, Emine, welcome.
Hi, Rutu. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it is our pleasure. So I always say that I always ask the panelists to introduce themselves, so I feel like I can read out your bio, but it's so much better, so much more personable to hear from you. So, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Rutu. Hi, everyone. My name is Emine. I'm currently a senior product manager at Microsoft. I work on M365 products, including a couple of customer-facing ones. Prior to my role as a product manager at Microsoft, I was an engineer at Boeing. I received my Master of Engineering Management degree from Purdue University in 2016. Prior to then, I had completed my aerospace engineering degree from Purdue University in 2015. And since having started working full time, I also have gotten my Master of Business Administration or MBA from Washington State University in 2021. And today I'm excited to talk to you about being a PM.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time, Emine. Um, One of the questions to start off with, you said you finished your undergraduate at Purdue as well. Is that right? And then you decided to join MEM right after. Uh, what brought you to Master of Engineering Management? Because I feel like that each of our students have a very different story. I mean, that is the goal of the consortium to kind of make it so that everybody knows about the degree, but I'm very curious to hear about your experience.
Thank you for the question, Ritu. There were four main factors that led me to choose Master of Engineering Management program. The first was kind of the job opportunities I had when I graduated with my undergraduate degree. At the time, I thought I would see a job offer and I would just fall in love with it. And I had amazing job offers, ones that really excited me. Most of them were in aerospace. One of them was more tech. It was an opportunity with IBM to be um, customer success engineer. And I just didn't get that feeling, didn't get those butterflies in my stomach. And I thought maybe I don't have the skill that I need to have to do what I want to do. So that led me to kind of look at my current opportunities and say, how can I add more skills to myself? And I had a couple of friends who were in the MEM program at the time and they spoke so highly. So MEM was immediately on my radar. And when I looked at the curriculum, both of other engineering management or engineering master's degrees, MEM clearly stood out from the get-go. So I loved the curriculum. Was I could choose classes from any engineering college. It was very flexible. I got to be in the class with the MBA students taking MBA classes. That really spoke highly to me to expand my skill set and add more to who I was so that I would be a more competitive candidate to the kind of job that would give me butterflies in my stomach, as vague as that sounds. And as I was getting taking a closer look at the master's degrees, one of the big difference was the thesis versus non-thesis. Although I had studied to be an engineer, I had interned to be an engineer, I knew that I wasn't going to be an engineer forever. I wasn't really sure what that meant at the time, but wanted to have flexibility in my career. So I didn't want to spend a lot of energy writing a thesis on something that I didn't feel passionate about or wouldn't use for very long. So I definitely wanted to do a non-thesis program. And the last aspect was the duration. I had finished my undergraduate degree in 3.5 years. I didn't want to be on campus for 2 more years. I did want to go out and get some real world work experience. So the MEM program with the 1 year option for me was a great fit. And again, my friends at this time were getting ready, like finishing their MEM degrees, and they had amazing jobs lined up. They were so excited. So it made great sense to go with the Master of Engineering Management program. I will say that PM or being a product manager at the time wasn't on my radar. I honestly thought I would be a people manager for engineers, and that's what the MEM program was setting me up for. And that's kind of what I thought at the time. Obviously not what happened, but MEM program was so flexible, it served me great in those cases. And I do want to highlight one amazing opportunity I had where I did do the 1 year MEM program, so I had to take classes throughout the year, but I was able to take online classes and do an internship, which was amazing how the program served me and my needs. But also there was an industry professor at Purdue at the time offering a study abroad class going to space agencies around Europe, visiting ESA. And I thought this was a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, we in the US have access to so many of the NASA resources, being able to see it in Europe. So I was able to make my case to the program to say, why should I take this study abroad program, which wasn't default approved? And again, the flexibility of MEM and just really supporting its students in their unique journeys was amazing. So I got to do a study abroad program, interned, finished in 1 year, got an amazing experience. Don't regret a single thing about it. MEM was a great program, and I'm sure a lot of us are here because we think that we're prospective students should reconsider the MEM program.
Perfect. And did you get the dream job that gave you butterflies right after MEM?
Yes, yeah. When I graduated from Purdue with my MEM degree in December 2016, I had a job offer with Boeing to be an engineer on a rotation program, and that did give me the job. I still have my offer letter, and that was perfect. And I would like to note that prior to doing my MEM degree, I hadn't even gotten an interview with Boeing. So, and I had other friends who had gotten interviews, had never gotten jobs. So it was an amazing turnaround of how the skills that I was able to gain from the MEM program. I did get the job, which was for me an engineer at Boeing working on commercial aerospace in a rotation program. But before I started that, I went on vacation, which I do recommend if you're looking at graduating soon, take your time and take your vacation. So after I went on a vacation and kind of had that out of my system, I started at Boeing as an engineer. I started as a level 2, which means I was promoted before I joined, which is an amazing thing, comes with a pay bump. So your master's degree is a great way of starting at a higher level in some or most companies. So again, very good investment to your future. But I started as a level 2, and the engineering rotation program I was in was designed to be 3 years, 3 to 4 different engineering roles. So as a part of this, I was first a systems engineer working on airplane level integration for the 777X, the wide body airplane. Then I was a liaison engineer. This is similar to material review board, MRB, if anyone's familiar, but any scratches on the airplane, all of those are taken a close look at and addressed. So very detailed in kind of the manufacturing world. Then I was a customer engineer delivering airplanes to airline customers as a part of a team where we delivered billions of dollars of airplanes to airline customers. A very exciting and empowering job, and you sit shoulder by shoulder with the customer. So again, very different experience than working manufacturing and being in a factory. And lastly, I was a flight test engineer on the 777-9. At this time, the airplane wasn't flying yet, so it was more about ground operations. But again, very exciting. But towards the end of those 3 years at Boeing, I saw that although it had been a great company, I've had amazing opportunities. I learned so much and was around this product of, airplanes that I absolutely love. I saw my growth differently. So towards my 3 year mark, I started looking elsewhere to see what other opportunities are out there. And I applied online. I interviewed a couple of phone interviews with a couple of different companies, but eventually got my product manager 2 role with Microsoft on the current team that I'm on. So now that I've been at Microsoft about 4 years in the same role as a product manager, it's been a very exciting journey. I've gotten to promote twice. And again, the MEM has been a great resource, and the skills I've gained from it have been very applicable.
Very cool. That sounds really exciting. I think the rotational program is a great way, I believe, for anybody to get an inside view of the different aspects of the business, especially if it's an engineering rotation program, then you get to see the different sides of engineering. And then you get to decide whether you want to stay there, or you want to move elsewhere, or you see yourself doing something different in the future. How did MEM help you in your transition to product management? I know that's a lot of our students who come in, current students and prospective students, are thinking about product management. Would you say that what you learned at MEM kind of helped you understand the various aspects, or how did it help you?
Absolutely. I think one of the stigmas that we need to overcome when transitioning into new roles is to say, I didn't wake up one day not wanting to be an engineer. So the MEM degree was a very critical step in my transition. It was also a very intentional step. I was able to show, although I had been an engineer in aerospace, I have the skills to be a PM in technology. And for me, more specifically, all strictly software is what I work on. So very different than most of my previous career. So it was very important to have that intentional step of saying, hey, I didn't wake up today and just apply for this job out of the blue. I have been building myself up. I've been advancing my skills in this direction, and here's why I qualify. And I can show both examples from work where I can pivot my engineering experience in ways that are more applicable for a PM, as well as highlight my education. And at this time, I was a third of the way done with my MBA, so I don't think it was really a factor. But again, it was another step in the intentional building of yourself and your skills and your career, and saying, here's all I have to offer, even though I didn't have a PM title and I wasn't in tech. Here's all the things I can do that I've learned and I've demonstrated. So that intentional step with MEM, I'm sure will help many of us transition into different roles that we're interested in.
Yeah, so let's talk about the MBA. I mean, I know what prompted you to kind of do an MBA post MEM?
I did a couple of certificates. I knew I'm a lifelong learner. I do like learning, and I do get joy out of like a syllabus. It's kind of like a game. So I did a couple of certificates, continued my education. At some point, I realized I think in my life I'll want to do an MBA, and it's going to take a while. For me, it took 3 full years doing it part time, and I preferred to start sooner when I knew kind of what my life looked like, and I knew I had the time for that study. And although it wasn't necessarily, oh, I don't have X experience that I will get with the MBA that I can't get at work, or that I haven't gotten in the Master of Engineering Management program, I knew that I would want to have it and that experience. So again, I kind of discussed it with my managers at the time, see what they would suggest. And having done the certificates, I knew I was learning for a bit more. And it was a big commitment, right? Especially as you're doing it part-time with work. But I just knew kind of, 10 years from now, I know I'll want to have had my MBA, and I don't want to not work if I go full time for it. So that's kind of what made best sense for me in my case, and just the duration of it, knowing that it's not something that's going to happen quickly. It's a long-term commitment, and I'm able to commit to it now, so I want to pursue it.
That makes sense. And I guess it helped that your manager was supportive and you had a very good work environment. And the company, did the company sponsor your MBA as well?
Yes, both Boeing and Microsoft do have educational stipends that you can use, and there are certain of them have some strings attached, which you might want to make sure you are aware of before you start using the company benefits for those.
Makes sense. And if you have the benefit, why not, right? As you said, if you're a lifelong learner, you're always looking for that next, what am I doing new that's gonna make me grow and learn. Very perfect. So you've had a very interesting career path, right? You did your undergraduate, did your MEM, worked for a few years in an engineering, very technical role, and then you transitioned into product management. How was the decision to, how did you identify product management as a place where you wanted to be? And then how was the job search process for you and the interview process for you?
Thank you for the question. I think if you don't want to be an engineer, and I live in the Puget Sound, Greater Seattle area, wanted to stay in that region too. There were really product management, program management, those flavor jobs stood out. And there was site reliability engineer was another one that kind of stood out. But once I started reading the job recs and understanding, or watching some videos of people in those roles kind of talking about their work, I just kind of applied. I didn't exclusively apply for product management over program management. I even applied to, I think, some site reliability engineers, but now that I understand what they do, it wasn't what I was looking for. So I was pretty open with what kind of title, because my goal is to get closer to the kind of thing I want to do. Maybe it's not the perfect fit, but I'll get closer. And you can always, once you join a company, you can understand better what you're working on and see, oh, can I go to a sibling team? I wasn't very strict about the role. I was just looking to get that experience, and I also didn't have a specific product in mind that I felt passionate about that I wanted to work on. So that part was pretty flexible. And if you have any specific requirements, that's also obviously important for you to highlight those in your finding the job recs you're applying to. My general advice to everyone applying to new jobs is to apply online, apply often, and apply to many. And that's many job recs and many companies. And I say that because you all are either current students at amazing universities, which have a lot of resources, or you're prospective students looking to join these universities. And there are career fairs, industry people coming to talk to you, events for networking. So you have amazing opportunities in person. But don't let that not have you apply online. There's new jobs online every day, and don't miss out on those. So that's just my general advice before I talk about my personal experience. So in 2020, I started applying early 2020. The first thing I did was to update my resume because I had done an internal rotation program. I still had an updated resume, but it was very aerospace, and I knew where I wanted to go wasn't going to be just aerospace. So I made sure to take a critical look at my resume and update and kind of revamp what it said. If you have looked at PM job roles, you'll see some words are used very frequently in job recs. Ambiguity, curiosity, like lifelong learning is kind of how I have phrased my curiosity. You want to make sure these are on your resume, and you talk about your experience having managed ambiguity and provided clarity for your teams and etc. So I revamped my resume after having looked at the job recs and saying, how do I pivot my engineering experience into skills where PM would need to demonstrate before being hired? So after I kind of had my resume in a pretty good shape, I applied online. I had a friend who worked at Microsoft, so I did get a referral. If you are looking to get a referral, make sure you ask. Each company is a bit different. You might apply first, then be referred, or you may have to be referred first before you apply. So make sure to check with the folks you know at the company that you'll ask for the referral from. But a referral is always nice, just gives you a little bit of edge, or it's a little, star next to your name or whatever it does in the system behind the scenes. So once I kind of had applied, I kept checking maybe like every week or every couple of days, new job recs, keep applying to the newest ones. And I had 6 phone screens, mostly with Microsoft, but also with a couple of other companies where I did the phone screen. It was either with the recruiter, hiring manager, or a team member. And I did not get the next step of the interview. And recruiters or high interviewers, they're not able to give you a lot of feedback. So you kind of have to be very cognizant of what you said, how it was perceived, and what you can do better next time. So although I didn't get the next interview for these 6 roles, I did improve myself, how I communicated, and what I had put on my resume. I may have updated some words or how it was told on my resume. And my 7th phone screening, I did make it to the next step, which is the loop interview. So a loop interview is 5 to 6 hours. A phone screening is probably 30 minutes. Loop interview, camera on, maybe in person, and there will be a couple of different parts to this loop interview. And again, I'm speaking from my experience. Yours might be different, and the company you're interviewing for may have different steps. But I had a coding, system design, behavioral questions, and culture fit. So coding was the interesting one for me because I had asked my recruiter, like, am I going to have to code? Usually if you have to code, they'll send you a compiler. You kind of know that you're going to have to code. For me, they said you shouldn't have to code, but my interviewer did ask me about coding. So it's always good to be flexible and be prepared throughoutly and not just rely on the information you're given. People are very honest and they're very kind and helpful, but your interviewers have flexibility to ask you what they think would be necessary for you to succeed. They had a coding question. It was just pull up Notepad and just type. Like it was very open-ended, and I got questions like, oh, how would you improve what you just wrote? Or like, do you think it would work? Because the interviewer knew that I had missed something, so they were trying to help me. So that was the coding part. System design, if you have not heard about it, it's questions like design an alarm clock. So if you're on this call and if you're interested, put it in the chat how you would answer if your interviewer asked design an alarm clock. And I'll touch up on what the answer should be if you're applying for a PM job. There's a rightish answer that we are looking for. But a system design could be simple as design an alarm clock. So put in one sentence how you would answer that. Or it could be as complicated as draw a diagram of Instagram or a product that you would use or a credit card payment tool, right? So varies greatly based on what level of PM you're applying to. At the time, I was applying for a PM2 job, so I would say mine was on the simpler system design, but can get very complicated. Whole books out there that you can read if you're curious about the system design or if you think that's interesting to you on your career journey. Behavioral questions, I think, are a bit more straightforward, or most of us probably have experienced them. I think the Amazon leadership principles have great resources here where you can prepare for different behavioral questions, and they kind of apply for many companies. And the culture fit is where a senior manager on the team kind of asks you some questions, get to know you better to see if you're a good cultural fit to the company, which is, again, an amazing thing because Microsoft culture has been such a rewarding, positive experience. It's great that every candidate is um, having a part in their interview to make sure they're a good cultural fit. So after that 5 to 6 hour interview in one day, I waited a couple of days. There were other candidates being interviewed. Got a call from my recruiter, and they said verbally what the offer would say. So we want to offer you the job, and here's what you should expect your salary and other components to say. And again, make your own decision, but it's always a good idea to ask and try to negotiate and see, like, they're not trying to lowball you. Just great confidence in your recruiters and the hiring team. But it's okay to ask for more if you think you can get more, but just be courteous and kind on that journey. So that was pretty quick for me, the salary negotiations. And in worst case, they say no. The company says no, and you have, the offer that they had verbally told you. And then I had my background check, which took a while. Then I started in April. So I had applied probably January, February, interviewed in March, started in April. So that's kind of the timeline that I experienced with Microsoft. I do want to share some more insights that I've gotten interviewing with other companies since I've joined Microsoft. Would that be a good time, Rutu? Okay, wonderful. So while I do work at Microsoft and love my job and get a lot of greatness out of it, it is a good idea to keep yourself up to date. And I follow my advice and apply often. Often for me is once a year because I'm not really looking, but I do like to update my resume and put my resume in the system so it does appear in the search for recruiters. In 2021, I interviewed at Amazon. Again, I kind of had applied to a couple of jobs. I had 3 phone screens, I believe. 2 of them I did not get the next step. The third one I did. I did the loop interview, so pretty similar to the Microsoft experience. Again, your recruiter, the hiring team, really helpful, really gracious, very good experience. I was offered the position. At the time, I was a PM2 at Microsoft, and this role was also for a PM2. And I just thought I had a better chance at Microsoft advancing my career. I liked the project I worked on. I love the people I worked with. I just decided Amazon for me now is not the time. And this was a technical program manager role. And then in late 2022, I interviewed at Google. For Google, it was interesting because I hadn't applied recently, and a recruiter reached out saying, hey, I specifically hire for technical program managers. I see your resume in the system because I had applied a while ago. And would you be interested in doing a phone screening? So with Google, I said, when do I, how much time do I have to do the phone screening? And she said, you can do it whenever you want. So I asked, can I have 4 to 6 weeks? And she said, absolutely, sure, no rush. The Microsoft and Amazon, it was specific teams needing the specific people, so it was way faster. You had to get on a call that week and interview next week. So you did not have as much time to prepare. But with Google, for me, it was way more relaxed of a timeline. And again, that might be different for you based on the job or the time of the year that you're applying. But for me, I had 4 to 6 weeks before my phone screening, so I was really able to prepare. I hadn't interviewed with Google or knew how much or knew too much about how their interview system worked. So that was a good practice for me. And then I did the loop interview, you don't get an offer, you kind of go into a team matching phase. And at this time, I didn't think I wanted to switch jobs based on where the industry was at and kind of what kind of hardships we were looking at. So I asked to tweak my application. So which is the last thing I want to touch on is, let's say you interview and you do get the job or you do have an offer, you move on to whatever the next step is, that's valid for some months. I think for Google, it was maybe about a year. And for Amazon, it was a few months as well. So if you get a job and you still decide not to take it, you do have access to it or it doesn't go away immediately. And on the other side, if you do interview, the loop interview, the long 5-hour one, and you do not get the job offer, you're rejected, it's okay because now you're probably in a waiting period, so you probably won't be interviewed again for a few months. The company wants to see that you add more to yourself before they interview you again, and then you get that opportunity to kind of have your waiting period. Again, ask your recruiter about this. And I say that because if you have an interview scheduled and maybe you're sick, like you're really not doing well, do consider what the outcomes would be and how that would affect you in the long term. But I do encourage all of us again, apply online, apply often, and apply to many. Because if there is a count limit on how many jobs you can apply to, the company will enforce it. So just make sure to keep your resume updated and have your name in the system, because you never know when an opportunity can strike.
I love that. I love that, Emine. I think you're one of the few people I know who openly says, that I keep myself up to date. I keep looking at the market to see where I am, and I apply just to see how competitive I am. And I think if nothing else, there's knowledge and information you get to know where the market is heading to, should you ever need to switch, right? So it's better to do it when you don't need to switch, but you have the luxury of just trying it out, kind of thing. Let's talk about product management at Microsoft. So we had a session about product management last month, and we talked about how product management looks different in different companies, in different domains, in different industries. So what does product management, like what does your day-to-day role look like? What is product management at Microsoft?
Yeah, so I'll start with saying there's program management and product management. There's technical and not technical. It's a matrix 2x2, so there are really 4 options. I think Amazon does this the most clear, where you see all 4 of these job titles mentioned. My role at Microsoft, my title is product manager, and when I was hired, it was program manager. So everyone on my team and everyone in my organization, and we're talking like hundreds of people, we were all program managers. Then, like maybe a year in, they decided you're all going to be called product managers now, and your responsibilities are going to change a bit because you're going to be focused on the longer term roadmap more closely than the day-to-day scrum meetings or execution part, right? So my organization made the conscious decision to call all of us senior product managers and seniors at the level, and none of us are technical and none of us are non-technical. Most of us have an engineering background or some technical background. So it's also important to ask, if you're interviewing or looking at jobs, like, are there other program managers? Are there other product managers? Like, is everyone technical? Is everyone non-technical? So it does differ by organization and company. So with that, I'm a product manager. I don't have program managers I work with. So my day-to-day job and the most important thing I do as a PM is to be the advocate of the customer. I'm the voice of the customer in the rooms where we're developing the products these customers are going to use. And customer may mean an external persona. It could be an internal. It could be another Microsoft employee who's going to use a process, tool, report, whatever it may be that you're building. So my day-to-day, based on where we are in our planning or where we are in our execution, may be planning a roadmap. Right, as product managers, we're focused on what do we do like next month, the next year, the next 5 years. So a lot of thinking about the roadmap and making sure we have the data and clarity to know where we're going to invest in. We also have semester planning, maybe quarter planning, annual planning. Every company and every team has some sort of a planning cycle where you as a PM commit to what you're going to deliver on in that period. For us, it's 6 months. So every 6 months, I say, this is what I'm going to have done in the next 6 months. And that's my commitment. And that's why as PMs, we're so focused on delivering results. And once we have our commitments for that semester, we will write specs. Especially as product managers, we're focused on the what, not as much as the how. Your engineering counterparts are going to be great advocates for you and determining the how. So you also want to be respectful of that, but no one else is going to write the what. You as a product manager have to focus on the what. Maybe if you're a program manager, you will get more into the how and the discussions. And again, your engineering counterparts will have a lot of say in there as well. If you're a program manager, execution may be a close one for you, where you may be going to the scrum meetings, some sort of meetings you're attending, and you're working with your engineering counterparts on the deliverables. Whether you're program or product, you'll make data-driven decisions throughout this planning semester, and you'll either work on getting the data. Maybe that means you have to do some user research. Maybe you need to work with like researchers or UX designers, other people in your company, other job titles. But again, at the end, because you're a PM, you have to deliver results, and we measure that mostly with OKRs, objective key results. So every period we commit to what we're doing, and with key results, we measure how far we've come and if we've delivered what we say we would in that period of time. So with that, again, as a PM, your main job, you have to provide clarity. And that might mean writing specs. That might also mean there are two teams in contention and you have to kind of help find balance and make decisions. And you're working again with other PMs of other teams. So have to make sure you're prioritizing and managing the resources of your engineering team. Again, the engineering managers will also be helpful here. You're not going to be solely responsible, but based on how your product is doing, this could be a little different. And when you're delivering results, this is maybe a scary part of being a PM. Let's say something happens that was totally out of your control. Maybe you should have anticipated that. You have to think about risk mitigation, and you are responsible somewhat for things you had no control over. And that's the part of the job that makes it difficult and fun. So make sure you're thinking about risk mitigation and things that are not in your control. If they're going to cause you not to deliver results, are your problem and you should think about them. And lastly, you want to energize mostly the engineering team you work with, but everyone you work with, and build the excitement around your product, right? And that could be with leadership, with managers, like you're the cheerleader for your product, and that does show in what you do. And you're always gonna you should be excited to talk about your product and have conviction that it's going to be successful and you're going to do a great job. So that's kind of the roles and responsibilities, the day to day. You might have a lot of meetings, you might be doing data analysis, you might be like looking at trade-offs. It might look a little different, but overall, again, you're responsible for delivering results. So you have to do what needs to be done. And as ambiguous and vague as that sounds, that's the job.
That's right. It sounds like a lot, and it sounds exciting at the same time because it feels like you are responsible or at least have input in a lot of aspects of the product. For Microsoft, where does the product responsibilities of product manager and program manager begin, or what is the demarcation there?
In my organization, we don't have any program managers, so we don't really have a clear distinction. If you were in an organization where you had program managers, you probably would have way better clarity. I would say the program manager probably doesn't look at the roadmap other than for execution, where the product manager, you're very much involved in building the roadmap. And again, both people would work with engineers. You may be working, if you're a product manager, you may be working with business planning, marketing, some other roles that are more customer facing. Product managers will more often meet with customers if it is a customer facing product, and that includes external customers. A program manager most often may not get to meet with customers as frequently as a product manager. There will be some differentiations, but if you only have one in an org, in my case, product manager, you'll do both. So that's why it's kind of nice. And you can see in my history, I have applied for technical program manager roles and been able to get their advice. So I think people can go for both. Don't shy away. Don't be too committed to product unless you have reason to, because program and product get you great experience and would be very meaningful and valuable.
You can always pivot once you join, as you said, right? The key is to get as close as possible to where you want to be, right? That's perfect. And that makes sense now it explains why you said that you're responsible for delivering. Like, because normally sometimes a program manager is kind of the execution piece of it, and the product manager provides the insight as to what needs to get done in that sense. Perfect. What are some of the misconceptions you've had before, or actually, what are the misconceptions you've heard of in terms of product management that you're like, that's not true?
Yeah, it's PMs take notes, PMs schedule meetings, PMs just write specs, right? So these, by the way, we do these. I do take notes, and I think the new Microsoft AI tools have been awesome. So I do have to take notes less frequently, which I enjoy, but I do take notes, and that's not something to be ashamed of, or like other people take notes as well. I schedule meetings. I'm sure other people do as well, but just to say PMs, this is exclusively what PMs do, or only what PMs do, is an understatement. There's a lot more that you do that's very complicated and complex, and you add a lot of value to the team with your anticipation and management and mitigation and planning aspects, and a lot of data-driven decisions that you get to make and share with your team in terms of the data you collect, and you can collectively make a decision, So definitely those misconceptions are someone maybe who saw a PM but wasn't really sure what they do, and they just said, oh, this person always sends me a meeting notice, and that's what I'll assume they do. I wish your life would be as easy as that.
As simple.
Those are all very simple and
Yeah.
more straightforward things that we do as PMs, and there's a lot more that we do.
Yeah, I think you said it best, and this is something the other product managers last month said the same thing. You do what needs to be done to deliver the product, right? If it is as simple as keeping notes and scheduling meetings, you're lucky. But otherwise, you're doing almost everything else. Um, I want to talk about the skill sets. You've had your MEM, you've done your MBA, but what are some of the skill sets from MEM that you remember that help you in your current role, if you will? It could be technical skills, it could be non-technical and soft skills, because I guess a lot of engineers tend to focus on the hard skills. So I'm also curious about the soft skills part of it.
I think any degree, the most I got out of it was to say, I can do this. And that goes back to, like, I took a lot of orbital mechanics classes and I never use them. I don't think I ever will, but I know that I'm able to do such complex calculations and I have the confidence in me to take on any challenge. So I think any degree, especially MEM and like high level technical masters that you're doing, and putting yourself uncomfortable in the business classes, as you know, if you are not coming from a business background, was very challenging. Like I, to this day, really struggle with finance or like how much money do you need for retirement? I will not calculate it myself after having gone through the experience, but I am comfortable around finance and accounting and things I would have never been comfortable with because I had that experience. And funny enough, in my Microsoft experience, I had to work very closely with multiple finance teams and great respect for the level of depth they have, but I'm able to be in that room, feel comfortable, and know, even if I don't know the answer right now, I know what I can do to get the answer, and I have that confidence. So absolutely, that has been a great addition to my personal confidence as well as my professional skill and impact.
Yeah, I want to say that it kind of helps you understand the language. So even if you don't know the answer, you understand the language as to what they're saying, and you're able to ask the right questions in their language that they understand, if you will, right?
And Rutu,
Any other, go
yeah,
on.
I'll touch on some of the soft skills too. I think just a bigger skill that can go technical or soft are you have to be big picture thinkers as a PM. You have to see the whole product and what's around it and the ecosystem. You have to solve problems. And I think that comes with also being a power user for your tool. Whatever you're building, you better be using it like all the time so you get an understanding of what the customer is experiencing. And like we said, you have to get stuff done. But if I wanted to pick a soft skill, I think it's your communication and attitude that can make a big difference. And I'll give a couple of examples. PMs, you might think, especially at the higher level, senior and principal, you are being looked at for decision making, right? And you always work with a team and you always have the feedback of your team. So you never have to be in the echo chamber making these decisions, but you are looked at as a decision maker of the team. But I would say decouple yourself from your ideas. Not all of your ideas will be $1,000,000 ideas. So if you have an idea and you think you have certain data that supports it or certain intuition, and it doesn't pan out, try to go through that as quickly as possible. Obviously, don't waste 6 months going through an idea and not realizing it doesn't work out. But if you have an idea and your engineering team says, actually, like, that doesn't make sense for XYZ reason or for ABC data, that's okay. And your team together. So don't be too harsh on yourself for ideating and different aspects of your product. The second one, you're probably going to work a lot with different PMs who have their own agendas and their own engineering teams and resources they're trying to protect. So keep that in mind and play nice with others because it's mind blowing how small the world seems, even in huge companies, and how often you run into other people. It's just a good advice to being kind and courteous and making sure people come from or believing that people come from a place of goodness. And that goes with saying the sum is greater than the parts. Don't try to optimize your individual component when you're going to make life more difficult for others around you. Sometimes your team will be the one who has to do a little bit more work. It'll be more inconvenient. Your engineering team may be upset at you for not having anticipated this earlier. But think about the product as a whole. Think about what the customer will experience. Don't try to optimize your components alone because that's not a win in the great scheme of things. And lastly, which you already touched on it, asking the right questions at the right time to the right people. This is the most difficult thing to do, but you have to challenge, is it reality? Is it perception? Is it assumption? And keep that in mind. I trust the engineers I work with greatly. They're so knowledgeable and they have so much going on and so much knowledge, but it's always good to ask, hey, can you help me understand? Like, can you educate me? Like, why did we think this was not possible? Or like, how has this other team accomplished what we think we're being stuck with? So just always good to have that curiosity and being humble and being unassuming on this journey. And I think regardless of your level and how you progress in your career, these are great skills and attitude and communication skills to have.
That is a great list, Emine, and that is really some great advice. And that is true. It is a small world. I mean, even forget the organization, the world itself, the chances are somebody you worked with today may leave the company and be your interviewer for the next job you're applying to. So you never know. And a little bit of kindness never hurts, right? So if you have, you should, yeah, there's no reason for you to be not kind, if you will, at that time. All right. So we have, those are more or less the questions I had. I have a few more, but I want to go through the Q&A to see if there are any interesting questions we should be answering before we go back to some of the ones I have. I just saw somebody raise a hand. If you have a question, would you mind just posting it in the Q&A section, please? I think that's the easy way for me to keep track of all the questions that are coming along. I'm going to start with an easy one. This is about the job search and interview process. The question is it better to apply early to be prioritized ahead of other applicants, or is it better to have a referral, and even if it means waiting for a few days to get the referral?
I think a few days is okay. I personally prefer applying within the 2 weeks where the job was posted. If it's a couple days for you to be referred, I think that's totally okay to wait for. At Microsoft, you apply first, then you are referred, so you don't even have to wait. I know at Amazon, you have to be referred first, then you can apply. So it doesn't even apply for every company that you may have to wait a few days. But 2 days is okay. If you think you're going to wait a week, I would just go ahead and apply.
That makes sense. Another question very specific to your MEM, or I would say in general, actually. What courses should you take to prepare to be a product manager? Are there any courses?
I took all aerospace classes as a part of my MEM. Didn't think I was going to be a product manager, so I can't speak to any courses that I took that were like outside of the curriculum that really helped me. I think there were industrial engineering classes that a couple of my peers took that now sound more interesting and would have been valuable, as well as like maybe some computer science or electrical engineering, computer engineering kind of classes you can understand, especially if you're looking to do hardware. Those would be great classes.
Yeah, I can imagine any class that talks about how do you talk to a customer, how do you get the voice of the customer and translate that into requirements would be an easy one to at least start off with, right? This might be more specific to your role currently. It says, as a product manager, are you allowed to pitch in ideas for innovative improving the product or just managing the creation of the product?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of discussions like whiteboarding sessions, brainstorming sessions, and we won't record those meetings actually, so everyone kind of feels free. We'll invite all of our engineers, all of our managers, all of our PMs. We'll kind of be in a room, and we like using like a Figma tool where you can all kind of write together, categorize things. You can give people thumbs up to kind of prioritize the discussion and speaking. So I, as a PM, will absolutely encourage to share my ideas, and all of us are encouraged to find data to support our ideas, right? Why do I think this way? Why do I think this would help the customer? So absolutely, you're very involved in both facilitating the brainstorming, but anyone can have an idea. Maybe the biggest idea you pursue in the next cycle is going to come from an engineer that just joined the team. So you want to make sure you have a great company culture as well as a great team culture where you're able to get everyone's ideas, because sometimes when you're too into it, it's harder to take, big picture thinking can get more difficult as you get more deeply ingrained in the product. So absolutely, as PMs, any level, you're encouraged for brainstorming, suggesting ideas, and of course, making sure you do the all due diligence. Is there any privacy, security, compliance guidelines? Do I have to work with external communication teams? Or once there's an idea, there's a lot more follow-up for you to do as a PM.
Cool. There is one question that kind of is very similar to the question I was going to ask you anyway, so I'm going to combine the two. And the question says, what inspired your decision to pursue an MBA after MEM, considering that MEM is considered to be an MBA for engineers? And I wanted to talk about your decision-making framework that we've discussed every once in a while. So I'm curious to hear your answer, and hopefully the decision-making framework falls into it somewhere.
I think that MEM for MBA, you can do either or you can do both and get greatness, like amazing experience and skills out of it. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And you know yourself best and your clear expectations. So a very personal decision. I obviously chose to do my MEM immediately, which really helped me out for success in my engineering life, as well as has been a great stepping stone and a jumping, they call it jumping pad. I'm not sure how they, but I was doing the career transition. I also have obviously got chosen to get my MBA, and you will see some companies really highlight, you must, like, we really recommend that you have an MBA. They won't say like you must. I think Amazon is one of the companies in my experience. That doesn't mean all jobs are like this. So again, please take this with a grain of salt. But I wanted to have that experience, and I just did not see myself 10 years from now doing the MBA. So that's why kind of how it has worked for me. I know other people will do like executive MBAs if you're at a state of your career, but that would be helpful. But no right or wrong answer. I can't say like one thing I got out of the MBA that I didn't get out of the MEM. Especially if you're looking for a startup, I think the MBA would be very helpful because you go through a lot of that like startup kind of thinking in the MBA program. I obviously work at Fortune 500 companies, so it's not something that I'm particularly interested in. But if you were more startup-y, you can see
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, you can still get a lot of those experiences, but something to keep in mind. But that's how I've decided. And for my decision making, there's a book called Designing Your Life, Building a Compass, and it talks about work view and life view and things that add meaning to your life, whether it's family, hobbies, health, and things that add meaning to your work. And you want to make sure things are in balance, and you want to make sure you have energy positive activities. That's playing pickup basketball because you're like, man, I'm ready to take on the next challenge. I feel so energized. Or for me, it was when I worked like 60 hours a week, maybe 70, like very busy, very stressful. But I had a new challenge every day. And I was so energized because I'm like, bring on the next challenge. I'm like, ready. And that's when I got promoted very quickly as well, being recognized for all the hard work. Whereas now I work my probably 40, 50 hours, like nothing extreme. Most of my tasks, it's kind of like vacuuming or something. We're like, oh, I gotta do it. Like it's meaningful. It's gonna be good when I do it, but it's kind of a little annoying. So it's good to have a balance. Like I got married last year, went on a 5-week vacation, and did not have to do work stuff on my vacation because I know my area, I know my product, I know my customer event cadence, and was able to plan for all of that and not had to be very active for those 5 weeks that I was gone. So it was great to have Microsoft culture really support that, a great team, and just my comfort and the credibility that I've earned in my role benefit that. So definitely keep that decision-making matrix. If your work is like not giving you a lot of joy for whatever reason, it's always good to kind of evaluate. But sometimes if things are okay, it's okay to not have them be awesome. You can't have everything be super amazing. Your promotion every year is just probably not realistic as you get higher up in the levels.
That makes sense. And you don't want to burn out, right? And so, as you said, it's okay to be just okay. And it's okay to have normal years like everybody else. And then you have you recharge yourself, and then you're ready for the next big challenge. Because you never know, right? Perfect. Let me see if there are other questions. There was one question which said, when you look back, is there something you would change? And I'm trying to find that question. Yep, I think that was a gist of it. Like looking back, would you change anything, or would you do anything differently?
I don't think so. Again, I took like a lot of aerospace classes even as a part of my MEM masters, and I wish I had kind of broadened my horizon at that stage and kind of explored what else was out there. Product management, program management was not on my radar. I thought I was going to be a people manager at the time, which I am not. So always good to kind of challenge your assumptions for your life as well. We did that for our products as PMs. But I don't think I regret too much. I'm very happy with where I am and very excited for what's to come. And even now that I feel like I'm okay with my job, later in 2024, we have great big milestones where I anticipate being very busy and being very excited to share like news about my product. So it's kind of okay as well to look into the future with hope rather than looking in the past, because we are where we are, and we learn from what we can. And for myself, it would be to keep it more broad horizon than very specific to aerospace, which is not what I do these days.
That makes sense. Did having no work experience after bachelor's play a negative role in your finding an internship or a job after MEM? It didn't sound like it, but that's a question, so I'm asking.
No, I think I had 3 internships total, so I was able to make use of most of my summers.
Mhm.
So I don't think it was necessarily difficult, and Purdue had great opportunities for hiring. I'm sure, again, all of the universities that were represented here give you a lot of opportunities. So I did not have a particularly difficult time. I know if you're in a unique case with a visa or something different, you can get specific sites in those areas. But I think the school, as well as the opportunities and just applying online, which is gives you a huge scope of careers you can access or job recs that you can access.
Yeah. There's a couple other questions. I think some of them are very specific, and I would recommend you reach out to Emine after this. You have her LinkedIn profile. You can send her a message. But my question, and I'm going to kind of summarize a few of them, is when you were trying to switch from a technical role into a PM role, product management or program management, it didn't matter. What did you have to tweak? So can you give some examples of how do you, because we talked about transferable skill sets, right? But how do you do that? Or some examples of it, for example.
Yeah. For example, when I was in flight test engineering, which is the most recent role I've been, and I will put a caveat when you are interviewing, you're better off giving recent examples. If all of your examples are from 2 years ago, that may not be reflected too positively. So I specifically looked at examples in my current role in flight test. I at the time the airplane wasn't flying, so we're doing ground testing, and the 777X airplane has folding wingtips, which is really cool. And we wanted to test a tool to see how the folding wingtip could be serviced in field.
Mm.
So again, nothing confidential to that airplane, and you can kind of anticipate from maintainability as an important aspect for a new feature rolling out with a new airplane. So I organized both the supplier coming in from Germany, support teams coming from California to Washington. It was like 25 of us, including all the mechanics. We had to have like 5 scissor cranes and then like an overhead crane, which has a different union. So those people can't be in the crane for more than certain hours. So a lot of moving parts. And by the time you have to buy time on the airplane, you have to reserve time on the airplane. And I was only able to get second shift on a Saturday because the type of test, no one could move on the airplane. Like no one could be touching the airplane for the sensitive testing. So very technical when I tell you about this, right? But when I take a step back and say, I organize X many people from Y locations in Z job roles to accomplish this metric, and I'm looking to improve maintainability of the airplane for, again, a airline customer is a list of them. That speaks volumes. So you can tell a story different ways. And if you were telling your story to your coworker versus your grandma, you probably say it differently. So kind of take a step back, like talk about your experience from your perspective, but also say, what skills on this job rec can I highlight? And that was the biggest one I did was this ground test that I had organized. It was supposed to take 8 hours and it took us 4 hours, including the lunch we had. So my manager was also really surprised. He's like, "Do you want me to come on like on Saturday to the fact?" I'm like, "I think I'm gonna be okay." And then when I told him we were like, when he heard we were excused after like 4 hours, he's like, "Are you done, or did something?" I'm like, "Done." So it was just a very empowering, confidence building experience, and it goes back to seeing the big picture thinking and saying, what all can go wrong, and how do I prevent all these things, and how do I ensure the best luck where we do deliver these results.
Oh, that's a great example, Emine, and I think that I will echo the same thing. That as in, if you are in a technical role, you are deep into technology. When you talk to somebody like a coworker, you're gonna talk about the technologies and whatever you use. But if you're trying to move into a PM role, try to see how it impacted the product, and view from that point of view, what did you do that helped the product, right? So for people who are looking to break into that first PM role, this is a great advice. Well, I think we are hitting the end. Um, oh, this is a question that I should ask because it's from Eric. He says, "What is Purdue's reputation in the industry?"
I think Purdue is amazing I'll tell the funny reason first. West Lafayette, Indiana, the weather conditions can be harsh. So when a company hires you, they know you'll stay because you've gone through pretty harsh weather conditions, and I think it's pretty darn cold there now. And just the students have a reputation of staying and being very resilient and hardworking students. In addition to that, obviously Purdue has a great engineering school. So any Purdue engineering class you take, I think aerospace is now rated 4th or 5th. World class, top of the US market. Really, you're working with the best professors, getting the best experience, and you know you're being tested to the T with all the curriculum. And when you are hired by the company, you are expected to deliver at those levels. And I don't think it's ever a disappointment for any company when a Purdue student joins their team, whichever program or college they're from. They're able to hit the ground running and really show. And whatever the weather is in that city, the students are never discouraged to leave because they've been tested. And West Lafayette has grown so much. They have an infinity pool at one of the apartments now, and the buildings, like the campus is always. So my brother just graduated recently. I got the chance to go back. Just an amazing school, and so surprising to see how much it has evolved and grown and modernized as well for infinity pools. I'm like, is this an ice skate rink in the winter too? Just great school, great reputation.
Thank you, Emine. All right, I think with that, we are going to end because I see we are a minute over time. So thank you again for your time. Thank you again for sharing your experiences, your insights. I love how analytical you are, and you are able to give advice and tips and insight that are going to be very valuable. So thank you again. It was great reconnecting with you. Good luck with everything. Good luck for the challenging piece coming later this year. We look forward to seeing the announcements. For everybody attending, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us. We are recording this session. The recording will be available hopefully sometime next week. I will send you guys an email with a link to it. If you have more questions, Emine, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn? Feel free to, perfect. Feel free to connect with Emine on LinkedIn. You should have her LinkedIn profile in your emails as well, and I'll add it to the recordings, the link to the recording as well. All right, take care, everybody.
One last thing to answer to, if someone asks you to design an alarm clock, as a PM, you should ask, who's my customer? Who am I designing for?
Hey, there you go. If that is a $1 million question, right? So as a PM, you're always customer focused. So if nothing else, if you get nothing else out of the fireside chat, that is the best hint that Emine could have given you for cracking your PM interview. So good luck, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend. I'll be in touch. Thanks, Emine, again. Take care. Bye-bye.